All right. Welcome back to the Bachelor Life Coach podcast. I'm your host, certified life coach Lynn Grogan. And if you are just joining us for the first time this week, the idea for this podcast is that we take moments from the TV show The Bachelor and offer life coaching advice based on what we see. So it's been a blast. It's maybe the best idea I've ever had. And to expand on that today, we have my guest, Lauren Ciesco. Lauren, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, Lynn. Hey, everybody listening. I'm so excited to be on this show today. I am also a certified life coach. I met Lynn in our training. I help women who are meant for something more in this world. They know they're meant for more and that they are ready to break through their limiting beliefs and habits that are holding them back. And I help them create their dream life.
Awesome. And what was I just going to say? I love that you're here and that your name is Lauren because Lauren is the most popular name ever on The Bachelor. And so far, I've had now two Laurens on the show. And so I'm just
Yay!
going to keep it alive. More Laurens. Like,
Yes,
Lauren.
Lawrence.
Yes.
It's a great name.
It's a great name. I also realized today that I think I've worn almost the same outfit every single podcast, but I have changed locations every time. So if you go over to the YouTube channel, which you can find linked to from the show notes, lingrogan.com/episode 4 for this, you could totally see that. Yeah, scenery changes. So anywho, let's do the recap. You ready? You ready for the recap, Lauren?
We are ready.
Okay. So on this episode, so this is episode 4 of The Bachelor this week. The girls and Peter head to Cleveland. Have you ever been to Cleveland, Lauren?
You know what? I have not been to Cleveland, but I'm glad that you asked because one of my favorite scenes in this whole Bachelor episode is when Chris Harrison comes into the girls at the beginning and he's like, okay, ladies, we are taking this on the road. We are going to go all over. Are you ready for the next stop? And then the ladies, like, you see them, they're like, yes. And they're like, he's like, Cleveland. And they're like, what?
Yeah, they're like, I didn't sign up for this crap, Cleveland. But,
Yes.
obviously they're given some talking points from the producers
Yeah.
because they all suddenly love Cleveland. Um, I have been to Cleveland. Actually, I like it, but I'm Midwestern, so I'm predisposed to like Midwestern things.
Yeah.
Um, so they go to Cleveland. The first thing that we witness is a one-on-one date with Victoria F. and Peter. They fly in a plane to Cedar Point Amusement Park, which I will say I have also been to and I can confirm is awesome. And they go to a Chase Rice concert, which we will talk about for sure. Lots of drama there.
Oh, yes.
After we leave the amusement park, next we have a group date where the girls play football to compete for a chance to win time with Peter, which I don't know, I kind of found a little gross personally. I don't know about you, Lauren. It's just like, oh, here we are, like, I don't know, competing for a chance with our love. I don't know. Ends in a tie. And then, so everybody goes to the group date. Originally, they were supposed to just do 6 of them at the group date, but they ended a tie. So all 13 of them are there. Alea shows back up, and Peter ends up inviting her back on the show and giving her the group date rose, even though she wasn't actually on the group date.
Oh, yes.
Um, After that, we have another one-on-one date with Kelsey where they explore the city. I don't remember anything from this date at all,
Yeah.
probably because it wasn't drama.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say it was like the most like just kind of like normal thing that happened in the episode.
Yeah, I'm like, Peter, this is what Peter thought his experience on The Bachelor were going to be. And the producers had very, very different ideas, clearly.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and then she gets a rose. She opens up about her parents' divorce, and he gives her that rose. And then we move on to the fourth cocktail ceremony, where it starts with Peter getting called out for being kind of crappy and not giving them any time, and then it ends in a cliffhanger.
Yes, leaving us hanging.
I know. I know. I I like the cliffhangers. I know I'm gonna watch next week anyway, but I'm just like, there's no resolution there. So I'm like, now I'm just like, okay, I'm ready. I mean, next week there's actually gonna be 2 episodes, so maybe even another cliffhanger. Who knows? Um,
We will
so that's
see.
the yes, we will see. So that's the recap of the show. Um, this week I had a couple people like submit some coachable moment advice for us, so I took some of theirs. So thank you for Kelly Shipley from the Curated Mind and Janet Cagle. had some stuff from the week before. So if you want to contribute stuff to next week's show, go over to my Instagram at Lynn Grogan and look for the post that says, what should we coach on this week? So on that note, Lauren, are you ready to coach?
I have been ready since I watched the episode on Monday, and actually it was Tuesday. And I love it that I got to, in the middle of the day on my calendar, put "Watch Bachelor" and take notes and call it work. So
You're
I am
welcome.
ready. Yes, absolutely.
Amazing. So we're going to jump right into the coachable moments. I'll go ahead and take the first one. So I actually wanted to start on a positive note because, Lauren, you and I have been talking about this. The show is so full of drama. Like, we completely forgot that this is actually a show about Peter finding his wife. And so for this first moment, let's go to that one-on-one date with Peter and Victoria F. They are sitting in a diner, drinking beer, and they're talking about how many kids that they want. And they want either 2 or 4. And Peter's reason for this is because if you have an odd number of children, there's always going to be a kid left out if they go to amusement park and it's only 2x2 seating. If there's 5 across, they're totally fine. But yeah, so they both agree they want 2 or 4 kids, and they have like a moment here where they're getting along, and you kind of see that attraction. You kind of see that there's something going on here. What did you think
Yes.
about this?
You know what? I love, love, love that we are starting with this as our first point, because this is the essence of the show, right? Is connecting and dating and finding your true love. And myself being single and being out in the dating world and going through all of this, what I have learned is that what really creates connection and what really creates love is sharing your opinions and creating vulnerability. And through that sharing and vulnerability creates connection and a deeper connection for people. And that's exactly what happened in this scene, is that you can see them sharing and being on the same page and having what we call in the life coach world want matches.
Yeah. So a want match is basically when all the things that you want in the relationship are delivered in the relationship. So we can see with Peter and with Victoria F, they have this idea of what they would want in a family, and they agree on this. So if they did get married, then they would probably there's no surprises like of somebody being like, I don't want kids.
Mhm.
Right. Which is interesting because, and we'll touch on this a little bit later, is when Victoria talks about her having dated Chase Wright, the musician who
Mhm.
performed for them, um, she talks about not having a want match with him. He has this lifestyle on the road. She didn't want that. And she said that's ultimately why she broke up with him. So we see her being super clear in what she wants. Who knows if Peter's super clear in what he wants, but I think it's important is in that moment, they both found that connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that was because it was part of their beginning of their date. I think that moment of that want match really took their relationship almost to the next level, where they're like, okay, we have some solid ground on here. And I think that's a beautiful scene, really showing that and their genuine connection.
Yeah, there is definitely a genuine connection there. And I think where sometimes we can get kind of confused in relationships is when that's not the focus. Like for Peter, actually, most of this season has been about him navigating drama
Yes.
instead of actually thinking about what he wants in a relationship and finding out what these women want in a relationship. It's mostly like him freaking out because somebody's having an emotion and then thinking that he needs to fix things or get to the bottom of things. So we see this genuine moment. He's actually dropped into figuring out what he wants, trying to see if that's what Victoria wants. And it worked out for him. And I think where we can run into trouble in relationships is if we don't think about what we want and instead we're trying to have the person kind of confirm our what am I trying to say here? Like if we're looking for our worthiness from that other person, if we're just like, don't even think about if we want them, we're just like, oh, I just need them to tell me that they love me so that
Yeah.
I can feel better about myself without even checking into like, is this even what I want?
Yeah, absolutely. And that gets you in so many different problems, because then you end up in a relationship where you're not being yourself. And I don't know if you've experienced this with other friends, but I remember when I was especially in my 20s and early 30s, I had some friends that would just jump from like one man to another man, and as they would do that, their interest in their style and who they would change, right? Where like there's women that just like kind of mold to like where or and I see men happen too. This isn't just women, but where people kind of like mold to the person that they're with, right? And I think that ultimately that's not being connecting to who you are, right? And like when you can really be honest about who you are and what makes you happy, and you find somebody that has the same want matches, there just ends up being this more fulfillment on both ends of the relationship, because you're not, instead of trying to complete the other person or validate the other person or get validation, you're showing up as your authentic self, and that's like the most beautiful thing that you can bring to the table when it comes to love.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny you're talking about your friends having done this. I'm sure I've done this, like molded my matches or my likes and dislikes in life to my partner. I mean, I'm really thinking about I think some of my biggest heartbreaks came from not having that want match with somebody. Like I'm thinking about my boyfriend right before my husband, and
Mm-hmm.
I really liked him, but we started out the relationship with him going, I'm not looking for like a long-term thing. I'm not looking to be committed. And I remember that being so confusing to me because we got along really, really well. But I
Mm-hmm.
never took that step back to be like, hey, he's telling me that he doesn't want the same things as me. And I
Yes.
just took myself down this road of heartbreak because I thought, oh, he'll change. He'll just eventually want the same thing as me. Like, I don't know if you've done that either, but like just the lies that
Yes.
you can tell yourself about what they want, right? It's like almost
Yep.
every relationship I had before Josh, just never aligned.
Yes, I think that's such a key point, that we just it's making sure that you're being honest and transparent. And like one of the things right now, and I'm 38 and I'm navigating the dating life, and one of the things that is helping me make really great decisions is that I'm really clear that I do not want kids.
Mm.
So when I'm dating, this conversation is something that's kind of happening in the forefront of it, because that's just going to be a deal breaker, right? Like if it's going to be somebody who wants kids versus me, it's like, oh, this is not going to be, this is a big want match that we're going to miss here. And so you just have to be really
Mhm.
unapologetic. And that's what I've learned to be, is just, yep, this is what I want. And it's so much easier to be in relationships when you know what you want and that you're on the same page
Yeah.
and you're not
And I
trying
mean,
to change it. And I think in the really like my biggest lesson, like when I think back at every man I've dated, the biggest lesson I've ever learned is that when a man tells you who he is and when a man shows you who he is, you believe it.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I think about like getting together with Josh, we just wanted all the same things. It made it really easy.
Yeah.
And then, like, in comparison, when you're trying to be in a relationship with somebody who like has told you who they are and you lie to yourself and tell, that's not really true.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just so much tension. It's just such a hard relationship. And
Yeah.
like, obviously, there's going to be difficulties in any relationship, but I feel like you just make it so much easier on yourself, at least when you start on that footing where you have some
Mm-hmm.
things in common and you want like the major things in life that you want.
Yes,
So that's
absolutely.
a
Yeah, I think that's why want
point.
match is so key and so important. And I love that it was beautifully demonstrated in the scene with the two of them.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that's probably what's been the biggest bummer for a lot of the women on the show. It's like they're just like, I just want to tell Peter, have some time to tell Peter what I want and see if we match up to each other,
Yeah.
right? Without
Yeah.
assuming things. And the only way that they know that right now is essentially hearsay from other people's one-on-one dates.
Yeah.
Like, so, which is, you know, we see them progressively get bummed out about it on this episode. So,
Yes.
I guess like the biggest takeaway here would be in any relationship is knowing what you want and then checking in with the other person. Like not
Yeah.
just assuming things, but just being like, hey, are we on the same page here? And
Yeah.
consistently checking in because our wants can change, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Yeah.
And then, you know, managing your mind around that. It's like, okay, like, is it time to walk away? Being willing to walk away from something if it's not actually what you want, which it can be super hard. It's an uncomfortable thing to do.
Yes, which is why so many people stay in relationships that are no longer serving them. But
Right.
that's a whole other coaching thing, because it just emotions that they have to figure out.
Yes. And this is why Peter has such a hard time letting these ex-girlfriends not be on the show.
Exactly.
Well, let's move on to number 2. So I'll go ahead and take this one again.
Perfect. Yes.
So we have the one date with Victoria F. And Peter surprises her. He's so excited to take her to this private country concert. She loves country with Chase
Mhm.
Rice. And what he doesn't know is that Chase is Victoria F's ex-boyfriend. And so I don't know about you, but like as they were walking up to the stadium, you're just like, I like had a visceral reaction to this whole thing. Like the whole experience is like, you're just like watching her face. Like, when is she going to find out? When is she going to find out? When is she? And then you see her just being like, oh, probably she heard the music and recognized
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Oh, absolutely.
And so, yeah. And so here he is. Poor Peter is like looking like a fool because she's freaked out and faking having a good time on this stage while she's thinking about her ex-boyfriend on stage, her current boyfriend in front of her. And Peter's having, of course, the best time. And we just see this scene unfold with Victoria, who is finally like coming out of her shell on the show, isn't like super
Mm-hmm.
insecure.
Yep.
And but now she's like freaking out because she's worried that if she tells Peter about her relationship with Chase Rice, that Peter's just going to walk away and be done
Yes.
with her. I mean, what
Mm-hmm.
she's kind of forgotten is that Peter loves drama, but that's besides the point. I mean, the premise here, he's all
Yes.
like, oh, I know this. But the premise here is that, like, she's worried that if she's vulnerable with him, which is what you had talked about in that first point, how important that is
Yep.
in a relationship, is that he's going to bail. She thinks that it's the thing that's important here is that he has only positive emotions about her. Like, what did you
Yes.
think about this scene?
Oh, man, as a coach, it was so hard to watch this scene because I'm just the type of person that like I speak what's on my mind in every moment. So if that was me, I would have like told him right away. And the way that I would have done that is like, hey, no big deal, but just FYI, this is my ex, but let's still have fun, right?
Right.
And that would be like the least amount of drama that you could be because I think you just kind of set the tone. But that was not what happened in this episode. And the reason why that did not happen in this episode is because Victoria thinks that she by telling Peter this information that she's going to hurt him. So she is in this place where she doesn't want to hurt him and she's afraid to hurt him. But the truth is that we, Victoria, me, you, nobody has the ability to hurt other people's feelings. And
Yeah.
that is, I think, the big takeaway from this scene is that what creates hurt for somebody else is their interpretation of what you're saying to them. So you actually do not have the power to hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
So in this scene with Victoria, she was coming from the place of, I don't want to hurt him because I think that if I tell you this information, you're going to be sad and you're going to be whatever her interpretation is. So the reality is that he wasn't upset by it, right? And so the whole time, this whole night, she did not have fun because she was so worried, and she was like worried sick to this point, right? Because she didn't want to hurt him. And so here she is in her mind and in her head worrying about possibly hurting her. And that was actually not the truth, because when Peter, she did tell that information, his interpretation was like, oh, thank you for being honest.
Yeah. And he just thought it was weird. He was like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Right. His interpretation was, well, what a crazy coincidence.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then he's like, are you over him? She's like, yeah, I'm over him. Again, the want match thing. She's like, yeah, we just didn't want the same things. Like, it could have been as simple as that. But because she like spent so much time worrying, which I love the quote that worry is the misuse of imagination, because she used her imagination, which she could have been imagining this beautiful date with Peter, where they talk about things other than drama, like maybe they open up more about what they want and why they are who they are. But instead, because she was so worried about it, she made this huge deal out of this. Like thinking it was going to like ruin her relationship. Like, I mean, her brain is like all of our brains catastrophizes. Like we project forward to the future. We're like, something terrible is going to happen. So how can I manhandle this and manipulate it so it doesn't happen? And then the funny thing is that she thought that he was going to walk away from her, and she's the one that ended up walking away from him. So she like runs to the corner and he has to run after her. And at one point, I think he even asks her like, hey, are you going to like run away from me again? So like, what kind of message does that send to somebody if you tell them something personal and then they run away? Like if I were Peter, I'd be like, she really over him?
Yeah. And my question, if I were coaching Victoria, which I would love to be able to coach her, because she's so amazing. I just want to help her clean up her mind a little bit so she could enjoy. And so thing that I would ask her was, what was she truly afraid of, right? Like in that moment, if I had gotten her in, like, let's just say, like, hypothetically, I was in that in the space and I saw her and I was like, okay, where's this fear coming from? She most likely, and I'm fairly certain about this, that if I asked enough questions, it would come from the stem of the fear of rejection,
Yeah, I
right?
agree with that.
And so what we do as human beings is that our fears we project into the world when we're not really clear about what we're doing. And so she's afraid of being rejected. So what does she do? She kind of basically rejects him first on some level, right? Or
Yeah.
puts herself in a corner or walks away.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if she had taken a moment to take a step back and be like, she immediately thought she was at fault for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If she had taken a moment back, she'd be like, oh, this is so funny. Like, this is so funny. What's happening here? Totally fine. I'll just explain to Peter and we'll go on with our date. No big deal.
Yeah.
But she thought it was a big deal and that affected her whole date. She made a big
Yeah.
deal out of it and then it blew up her date when it didn't have to be that at all.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, a good idea is always just to check in, like, what kind of future am I projecting here? Kind of what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
And like if I could imagine anything, is this the type of future I want to imagine? Do I really want to imagine Peter breaking up with me and walking out the door? Or do I want to imagine this moment where we could connect and have a vulnerable moment, or not even at all? Like,
Yeah.
let's not, right? He's looking to her how to respond. And so I truly wonder if in this moment he was like, wait, maybe there's something more going on here, when really this is all about rejection and not about affection for Chase Rice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was wondering too. I was like, wait, is she making this a big deal because she has feelings about him, right? Because it would be a big deal if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. But we later realized that it wasn't. So it was just like this assumptions that she was making in her head of what may or may not happen. And I think that's maybe one of the part of the takeaways of this is that our brain, the way that our brains are designed, is that it's going to make assumptions, right? We're always making assumptions about things and people and future and whatnot. We might as well, if we're going to make assumptions we don't know what's true anyways, we might as well make the assumption that everything's going to be okay instead of going to the worst. And that little shift will literally change your life, because she didn't know in that moment how she was going to react, but yet she chose to put all of her energy into the worst case scenario, where she very clearly could have done the opposite, which would have been like, oh, this is no big deal, this is funny, and then brought that energy and brought that to the table. And that actually was the reality of what happened.
Yeah, totally. I mean, ultimately she does get the rose there, but what a journey to get there.
Yes.
What a journey.
I just feel, and this is like, I think once again, the power of life coaching, right? Because that night happened, but she wasn't enjoying it. And if she had had some of these tools, it would have completely changed the experience of the night.
Yeah. Which, let's continue on. There's more drama to talk about.
Yes.
You want to talk about coachable moment 3?
Yes. Let's talk about coachable number 3. So the third scene that we picked was the one when Aaliyah, is I saying it right? Aaliyah. Aaliyah comes back to quote unquote clear her name, right? Which we think is just code name for drama. And Peter ends up at one point, because they're kind of like, he's talking to either of the girls, and then finally he pulls them together, and to get to the bottom
Victoria
of
P.
Victoria P. Yeah, Victoria P. And he pulls them together. And in this scene, they end up talking. And first off, going into the scene when they're pulling them together, my thoughts are like, yes, finally, he's going to get to the bottom of this. He's going to confront both of them, and they're both going to tell their truth, and he's going to have a really clear answer.
Lauren.
And it's like no longer going to be drama. But
Lauren, you're just as naive as Peter. Peter always thinks he's getting the bottom of things, and you bought that hook, line, and sinker. I went into it thinking, oh, this is going to be hilarious that he actually thinks he's going to get a resolution here. But anyway.
Yes. So really for me, the coachable moment in this scene is that Victoria Leia is asked, well, actually what Peter says is they're going back and forth. And then Peter goes, wait, I'm confused. Is there a relationship here?
Right? Because it's like they're playing with each other's hair and holding each other's hands.
And they're wiping their eyes. It's like I'm confused. And the whole time Victoria P is like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And the reason why I wanted to pick this scene is because as a life coach, my rule for my clients, and I know a lot of my other coach buddies also do this, which is I do not allow my clients to say, I don't know, because I don't know is the biggest lie that we tell ourselves. And when a couple of things that are happening. Either when you're saying I don't know, it's avoidance, right? Where you're just like, I don't know, I don't want to deal with this, I don't know. And the other thing that you're potentially doing is just trying to protect yourself, right? Like the
Mhm.
self-preservation of like not really getting into it so that the truth can be revealed, which was that the fact that she is lying the whole time or that there is some kind of deceit in what's really coming
100%.
out and yeah,
Yeah.
and what
And I mean, I think Victoria P has a lot in common with Victoria F here in thinking that if she did tell the truth, she might get voted off the show. Peter might break up with her. I
yeah,
think a lot of her I don't knows were fueled by that fear.
yeah,
If he knew the truth, like they were both like, if he really knew the truth, he would send me home. I mean, like the foundation of insecurity, you can really see it in that moment is she sees this conversation. Peter's like, I just want to find the facts. This is fine. We can just get the
yeah,
facts. And really, like, she's taking this as a personal attack
yeah,
on her. Is that she's somebody like she thinks of herself, identifies herself as somebody that tells the truth, but here she's caught in kind of a lie
yeah,
because she didn't tell Peter that the two of them, that Alea and Victoria P had gone to Vegas together.
yeah,
And so she just keeps saying, I don't know, probably in a way to kind of string Peter along and just, if he doesn't know the true truth, I get to stay. Like if he
yeah.
doesn't really know what's going on here. Um, all she had to say here was, you know what, you're totally right. I got scared and I didn't tell you that I kind of knew Alea a little bit more than I let on. Maybe I was a
Right.
little bit threatened by Alea because she seemed like she had a solid relationship with you and I'm dating you. That could have led into like the one thing that Peter actually knows he wants is the truth.
Yes.
But and so here there's no want match because she's like withholding information from him. The
Yes.
one thing he has stated over and over again he wants, she's not giving it to him, which leaves him frustrated. And I think ultimately we're going to end up seeing Victoria P and Alea go home.
Yeah. I think so too, because there's just so much. He's not, and the sad thing, and I think about this all the time, where it's once again, the connection is when you're having those quality conversations and when the time that you're getting with him is defending you or dealing with the drama, you're not actually like building any more of that relationship. And so
Yeah.
my coaching advice for Victoria P would have been in that, like after she kind of quote unquote get caught, like you said, coming through and being vulnerable and be like, actually, yeah, we did know each other. And the reason why I said that is because I really like you and I want this to work and I was threatened. Like that, like if a guy said that to me, I'd be like, oh, like you like me, like that's so sweet, like the vulnerability and then like the lie and then like fixing. We're all human, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't expect everyone to be perfect, but when somebody can admit that they're wrong, it actually makes them a human and that's more relatable and it's more connection. So she actually could have really put herself as one of the forerunners in this game show. If she had in that moment come clean, been authentic, been real, I think it actually would have taken their relationship to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, because Peter's made mistakes. He's owned up to it. I mean, he owns up the very like last scene we'll talk about today. He's owning up to it.
Yeah.
So I think if anybody could understand a mistake in making a wrong decision on the show, it's Peter. And
Yes.
she just shuts him off from actually understanding that part of her because it seems more important in the moment to
Yep.
hide something than it does to open up about something. And so sad for her because she was somebody that Peter seemed to really like. And my guess is we'll see that deteriorate over the next couple episodes.
Right. And the thing is because when you're living a lie that always comes out and it really is the truth that sets everybody free. And
Totally.
I think she just missed her opportunity.
I think she did too. Totally. Well, let's move on to number 4. So Alea is back. And
Dun
oh
dun
my
dun.
gosh, right? So she's back. Peter lets her back on the show because he's just unresolved about her before. And Alea has spent a lot of time in her brief foray at the homestead on the internet, and she has found out the hot gossip about Victoria F's date with Peter and Chase Rice. And She just marches right in, and just anybody that would listen just be like, oh my God, Chase Rice and Victoria. Like she just dishes all of it, which
Mm-hmm.
without taking a moment to pause. Um, Essentially, she's just gossiping. She's sharing information
Yep.
about people who are not present. She's sharing this with, I think, Hannah Ann and Kelsey. And well, like sometimes gossip can be a positive thing and it can be a way to bond us as like social creatures, like sharing information about other people. I think in this moment, Leia's thinking, knowledge is power. I know more than you guys. Let's take the focus off of my drama and look at this drama over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, she quote unquote plays the game where she's not afraid to get a little backlash. Right?
Yeah.
Where there are people that are always avoiding any
Peter.
like stirring, like, doing the waves, right? But I think that she truly thrives in that. And so when people are giving pushback, that's kind of her thing. She's like, okay, she's like ready and she's like engaged in it.
Yeah. Well, and she also she's somebody who thinks she never does anything wrong. So when
Mm-hmm.
she is later confronted by Victoria F., who Victoria has not shared this information with anyone. So it's very much a surprise. It was something that Victoria wanted to keep private. Leia ruined that plan for her. And so, but we see Leia just going, it wasn't me. I just figured everybody knew about it. Like, did you take a
Mm-hmm.
moment to I don't know, test the waters? No. I think Alea is somebody who takes her role as a social influencer
Yeah.
very seriously, quite literally. She's like, oh, I'm going to influence everybody.
Yeah.
And she's been doing that the whole show. The other thing I think is interesting about gossip, it just seems like so urge driven. Like when I think
Yeah.
about having an urge for food, it's almost similar to gossip. Like when I have information, I just like have to share it. So I'm guessing that was part of it too for Leia. She's just like, this is hot. I have to tell somebody. And here are the people on the show who are going to like be rapt attention. Like they're going to
Yeah.
be focusing on her, just wanting to know more and more and more. What does she know? And so I think that's a part of it for her is that she was like super willing to get that short-term gratification of
Mm-hmm.
having and indulging on this urge to gossip instead of thinking the long-term effect, which is, oh, I don't know, I'd have to guess here, but I think everybody in the house turns against her, even
Yeah.
more so. Like I think she had a few people that were kind of okay with her coming back, but
Yeah.
now nobody seems happy with her being back.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think also too, like with gossip in general, um, it can just in a course, let's be honest, gossip is the reason The Bachelor existed for how many, how
Yeah.
many
This is
episodes,
season
right?
24.
Season 24, running on gossip, right? Running on drama.
Mm-hmm.
And we everybody who watches the show, we'd love it. We pull up a spoon and we start eating it, right?
Oh my gosh. I
That's
know.
like
I was texting with my boss about it this morning. We're like, oh my God. Right? Yes.
yeah. And I think that so as humans, our brains, once again, the same thing with the food, but it's the same thing with like the social media notifications, right? Those big red buttons, like the urge, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, because what it really is that it's just this need to feel important, right? This need for
Yes.
importance, which is why she told the stories because she wanted to feel important. She wanted to get a certain rouse. And that's why people share gossip is because they have a need to be seen and to feel like they're being heard and to feel important, a closeness and a community, right? It was what you brought up earlier. But we're not really realizing the negative effects that
Mm.
gossip truly has in our lives. And yeah, that's why I think it's important that we're like realizing what's coming into our brains and what's going out of our brains and the environment with the people, right? And of course, on a show like this, where I believe that they don't have cell phones or access to like the
None.
internet. And I don't know about you, if you know, but like what do you do when you don't have your phone or whatever, right? And so you end up like talking to these girls and making friends with these girls. And so you're in this environment that can get very toxic. And so I think one of the most important thing for the contestants or anybody who actually wants the result of finding love in this show is that they're just keeping their mind set clean and that they're just having love for everybody, right? Because can you imagine being the person on the show that just loves everybody, never
I'm
talks
trying to
bad?
imagine this. I'm
And this is
trying
like
to
unreal.
imagine
Like we're
this.
all right, and I'm not talking about being perfect, right? Like I'm sure like everyone's gonna have opinions, and I like have opinions too. But just like truly, just showing up, being like, yeah, I'm just gonna love everybody. I'm just gonna accept everybody. That other people would have a really hard time not liking them or talking shit about them if
Yeah,
somebody
that's
truly
true.
did that on this show.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's how previous Bachelorette Rachel Lindsay has been described is like everybody in the house loved her. And I think that there's often that person in the house everybody loves. And my guess is the reason that they're so lovable is, yeah, because they're like this warm, positive energy. They're not trying to spread shit everywhere, spread the gossip.
Yeah.
They're not giving into those urges to do the gossip, which I do think is interesting because in that final scene, there is one moment where Victoria P
Mm-hmm.
mentions that whole scene with Alea and Victoria F, and she's like, "That's not my story to tell." So it was interesting to like see that part right after, like, "Oh, I'm not going to gossip about this. I'll let you know that
Mm-hmm.
their gossips exists." So in some ways,
Yeah.
she is like opening the door to gossip
Yeah.
and like making sure Peter knows about it. But it is interesting to see how it's treated sometimes by the
Yep.
women. Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Absolutely.
So speaking of that last scene, shall we move on to it? Do you want to take that one?
Yes. Let's get to it. Yeah. So in the last scene, it is going into the rose ceremony. Um, Peter says that he knows what he's going into as he's entering the building, but really what happens is that women start telling their truth, right? Like let's talk about, because I feel like truth is a big thing of this episode, where I know Peter's like, I
Yeah.
just want to get to the truth, or I just want my truth. And he comes in and there are some women that are ready to tell their truth. And one of the comments is that, like, I actually remember it so clearly, is that like I've never felt so like appreciated, or I've never felt so like under noticed by anybody ever before, right?
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
that
the
was
reality.
Deandra who said that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, after that, there you see him the last probably like 10 minutes of the show. He's talking to Alea, he's talking to some of the girls, and really like you kind of see the show kind of do this montage of like him and his thoughts, and like he's having thoughts like, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. I'm messing this all up. I'm torn right now. I can't seem to get the time to explore how I feel.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like going into the scene, and he's just has all kinds of opinions. The girls are kind of turning, and he's actually questioning at one point. He says, I'm afraid they're all gonna walk out on me.
Right. I would
Right?
also like if the stakes weren't so high and the rewards of the show so big, I think they would have by now. But there's like, career potential. There's the side benefits of being on the show. But I really do think that he's onto something there because he has
Mhm.
spent, as far as we can tell, very little time getting to know any of the women besides the one who have created drama. And I think it was even Xian who said, like, that she doesn't want to sink so low, like to like create the type of attention that it would take to get Peter's focus on her, which
Yeah.
basically is stirring the pot because those are
Yeah.
the only women he pays attention to. Because there's some part of him that just thinks if there's drama going on, I have to be a part of it. I have to fix it. This is my business. When really
Yeah.
it's none of his business. He just like it's just a huge distracting from any like figuring out what he wants, which he
Yeah.
doesn't know anymore, Lauren. He has
No,
no idea.
and that's why I was like, when I listen to this, I message out, I'm like, we got to coach him on what he wants. We got to end the show with like helping him get clear. And if he was here, I would like so many beautiful coaching I would do with him. But really, like this is the most important thing. Like while he's in a show like this, like he's here to like we know the results that he wants to create is to find his true love, right? Like
Yes.
that's like the end goal. What we have to figure out, or what he needs to figure out, is who does he like. First off, what does he really want, right? You can't go
Mhm.
into love, and you can't go into life not really like, or you can't create what you want unless you really have a very crystal clear position. So the first thing would be, what is it are you looking for in a girl, right? And then the second thing is then not being afraid that the women that aren't who he's looking for, to disappoint them,
Yeah.
right? To not have to give their energy or to give permission. And because I think that's one of the big hardest things for right now, is there's a little bit of people pleasing going on, right? Like we've talked
Yes.
about, where he's trying to make everybody happy, he's trying to please everybody, and he's not following his heart. He's doing what he thinks he should be doing, and
Yeah.
what would make everybody happy, which is taking him away from what he truly wants and the true purpose of the show. And so at this point, if I had had a time to sit down with him, we'd go back to the basics of what are you looking for? What are the results you want? And then helping him get clear on, then what do you need to think? What do you need to feel? Who do you need to be? How do you need to act that's in alignment with the results that you want? And anything else of that, be okay to hurt people, or you can't hurt people, but be okay with people being disappointed at you.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that's the part is Peter gets so freaked out by his own emotions and other people having emotions. He's
Yeah.
just in constant reaction mode. He makes these decisions to like bring Alea back to make her feel good, not thinking about he can't actually make everybody happy. Like
Yeah.
him doing one thing here is going to mean people are going to be disappointed there. So, like the one thing that he could drop here would be trying to manage everybody else's emotions and control them by his actions
Yeah.
because that's where he's getting confused. He doesn't really have like this want match with himself, which is,
Yes.
like he has these conflicting desires is like on the one hand he wants to find a wife, but on the other hand he wants to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those don't line up at all.
No. And that's the thing. It's like with his want match being out of alignment, he's what's the right way to put that? He's not making decisions that are in alignment with what he really wants, and that's the problem
Yeah.
because he is not doing the actions that are in true to that. So then he's either listening to other people, which is why Alea went home in the
Alea.
first place, where if he had just done what was true to him or listened to his own gut, that would have never happened, right? So he's turning to other people, he's asking for opinions, which is taking him off of what he really
There's just
wants.
a lot of elements of this where it's just like you can just see Peter doesn't trust himself anymore.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't trust the show much anymore. Not sure which women to trust. And so he's in this unsettled ground where he's just like, if I could just have some time to think about how I feel, but otherwise I'm just kind of, I don't know, in this washing machine, just being thrown over and over and over again. So hopefully as he narrows it down, he'll be able to clear his mind a little bit. But I think the producers have other things in mind for him.
Yeah.
Poor Peter. Poor Peter. But yeah, I mean, he's got to get clear with what he wants. He's got to
Yeah.
like try to see if he can settle his mind, look at all these like competing desires that he has, and just being like, okay, I just want this one thing. And I mean,
Yep.
who knows? As far as we know, Peter could have one woman in mind that he already wants, and so he's just indulging in all this drama. But
Yeah.
my guess is that's not true. He's still looking for his wife, and he's not going
Yeah.
to find her based on what he's doing.
Right. And I think the other thing too that is what's now going on with Peter is that because he's so confused and has all this other drama going on, he actually doesn't really have the emotional bandwidth to like be present with like the more important things because it's like he's putting out fires everywhere else.
Yeah, totally. So he's gonna have to get clear. I mean, every
Yeah.
week it pretty much ends on this point. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Peter, poor Peter. Oh, it
But
makes
it's
for
like,
good
but let's be
TV.
honest. Like, is this really poor Peter? 30 women chasing after you.
Fair. That's fair. Poor these women. Let's just say that.
No, I just think
They're
this is
all there.
exactly, and I think this is just a beautiful opportunity for personal growth for everyone. So maybe
For
this is like
everyone.
gonna like help change people's lives on a different level, right? Is like going through
Totally.
this, and then also too, like if you think about having to watch back your episodes and see like the
Yes.
whole world's like kind of like thinking and stuff, it just this is the best mirror for you. So if any contestants are listening to this, it's like use this as an opportunity to be like, do I like what I see? And if the answer is no, this is your place where you can like decide to be a different way. And like, it's always an option to change. And it's always an option to like decide to do something different if something's not working or if you don't like the direction you're in.
Totally. Well, I think that's a good point to wrap this up, Miss Lauren.
Yes,
Amazing.
absolutely.
So if somebody wanted to find you online, where would they go?
I'm in a few different places. So my Instagram is going to be just at laurenciesco.com. My website is www.laurenciesco.com. And then my Facebook page is Lauren Ciesco Coaching.
Perfect. So
So you
look
can
for
find me
Lauren
at
over
all
there.
those all those three places. I'm going through a little bit of a rebrand right now. So depending on when you're listening to this podcast, I'm changing my website and all that right now too. So hopefully it'll be up shortly.
Perfect. All right. So I will have all of those linked in the show notes over at lynngrogan.com/episode 4. And as a reminder, if you want to give us some themes to coach on for next week, hit up my Instagram at Lynn Grogan, and I will have a post there that says, what should we coach on? All right, Lauren, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
So
I've been a
fun.
fan of the Bachelor for years, and when I heard you were doing this, I was like, hell yes. And I
Oh,
hope that all
yes.
the listeners enjoyed our conversation today
Yes,
as
ma'am.
well.
All right. Thanks, Lauren. Yay.
Thanks, Lynn.